one part. I think that I will just simply sew them in. I don't think I'm going to try to do anything fancy with this one because I don't have much time. I will go ahead, I believe. I need to pick out papers to cover the inside of the cover. Sorry, I had to walk around my desk because my papers that I had cut off and that I hadn't used yet from the paper pad, I sat on the other side when I was having to film from the back side of my desk. So let's see. I think, first, I think we need to look and see what our covers are. The inside of the front cover is this floral. I do not have another sheet of that floral, so I don't have to worry about that clashing, or not clashing, but matching. This is the one that's on the back, so I know that I don't want to use this sheet. Oh, and my allergies, oh my goodness. I thought I was over the sniffles and they are just coming back with a vengeance. Now, since you will see the front and the back around the edges of the signatures, I do want to make sure that they go well together. I think I'm going to take this one out because these are the two that I'm working with. I'm going to have to use two different sheets because this is 7. Was it 7? Yes, 7.5. And so that means that I'll have to use 2 for that. And also I have this for the spine, so I need to make sure it goes with that as well. I am leaning toward using this one in the back against this, and using this one in the front against that because it kind of echoes this pattern here, and I like that. So I think that these are the two that I will use. So put these back over here with the Simple Kit basket. My paper cutter is still on loan. It is not back yet. I hope to get it any day now. So I will have to get my big paper cutter out that makes the big noises. And it also was on the back side of my desk. I thought I was more prepared than this. I apologize for that. All right, so we know that, whoops, I should have taken that out first. So we know that we need to cut our paper at 7 3/4 by 7 3/4. I thought it was 7.5. I am glad I measured that. So 7 3/4 by 7 3/4. Here. This was in the front. I tend to always cut away from me. I tend to. So tend to and always don't go together. I tend to cut away from me because it seems like when I cut toward me, for some reason I move the paper and I don't get as clean a cut. And when I cut away from me, I think that my pressure stays more firm and it's pushing up against that block. So if you're having a trouble with getting jagged edges occasionally on your cuts, it may be that you just need to change the direction that you're going. So now we're going to glue these in because they will be behind this muslin that I'm going to use on the spine. So this one is going here. And I will trim all this up at the edges whenever we get a little further along. This one will go here. And I believe this is the first journal I've made where my inside covers were not just one big piece of paper. So, going to get my brayer out because I know I'll need it. And my 3-in-1 and my card that I spread the glue with. Oops, I got a glob there. I'm glad I saw that. I am really not too concerned about it being perfectly flat. However, I don't want to have any more excess than I have to deal with. So, I don't know the best way to get that. It's obviously not going to be that. So let's try. This is an X-Acto, not an X-Acto knife. It's a blade from We Are Memory Keepers that I think I actually got free from scrapbook.com. If you check them out, and I am not an affiliate, I'm not making any money by telling you this, but I am on their email list. You can get on their email list, and every so often they have a free thing that you can get. All you have to do is put it in your cart, and if it's within the time constraints, obviously you can't just do it any old time, and it has to be the right item, but you just put it in your cart and it rings up as free. And offers do expire. You have to make sure, because I have gone back to purchase the free item along with some other things, only to find out that that offer was no longer available because I waited too long. I'm going to glue that down before I glue the other part on it. But this works so well, and it's ergonomic. It's got nice little finger holds and stuff. I like it a lot. Whenever I come across a tool that I really, really appreciate, I will share it with you. Like I said, I don't get any money for telling you that. I just like to let people know when something works well for me, because I like it when they tell me things that work well for them. My glue is getting a little low, so it's getting the gloopy going. I'll have to get that back out, but I'm going to hold this for just a second. At this point, also, if you wanted, you could take, if you had extra muslin or extra fabric or just something that you really liked, before you put your paper in, you could glue some of this around the edges if you like that raggedy look. I like that sometimes. I'm not going to do it this time, but that gives a really nice effect. And then when you sandwich your paper in there, oh, it's just, it's lovely. I really like it. Okay, so I need to make sure I'm still doing front and back. This is the front. All right. So this is how I do the glue. I make circles and squiggles. I do not make straight lines if I can help it. And I do it as quickly as I can if my elbow is cooperating. Sometimes my elbows and such, my wrist, things like that, don't want to cooperate. I have rheumatoid arthritis and fibromyalgia. And my tendons don't always want to work right in my elbows. It doesn't stop me from crafting. I just find new ways to do it. I like to spread that out so that I don't have the bumps. And that was the front, and this was the front. And so I'm going to match up my corners. I'm not worried about this part of it because I know that it is going to be partially covered with that muslin when I finish my spine. The brayer also helps to spread out the glue, to get out air bubbles, and to make sure that you've got good contact. I can see another spot where my cover is coming apart on the other side, not where I just glued it together, but where it was put together as a gift bag. It has been manhandled a lot, so I am not casting aspersions. Let's just use some fancy words. It has gone through a lot. It is still gorgeous. It just needs a little glue. Kind of like people. We go through a lot, but we're still gorgeous. We're still fabulous. Sometimes we just need a little help holding it all together. My right elbow is not too bad today, so this is working for me. And my left elbow is another thing. All right, let's smooth this out. And you do have to do this quickly. It's one of the things that we love about the Fabri-Tac and the 3-in-1 and all of those glues is that they dry quickly, but it's also something that can make us crazy because it starts to dry quickly. And especially when you're spreading it out thin. My apologies, my alarm went off again. You would think that I would remember that at 2 o'clock it's gonna go off. Maybe I just need to turn it off. All right, so once again, we're gonna roll this down. Good contact, no wrinkles, air bubbles. There we go. Now I'm going to take care of this, cover the edges right here before I go any further, just to make sure that I don't forget. I'm sure that it would remind me, but I'd rather do it now than later when it might be a little bit more difficult to mend. And when I do things like this, I kind of pull it apart a little bit again. See how the glue is stringing? For some reason, that seems to spread the glue out just a little bit more, and you get an even better contact right there. And then we'll come down here and we'll use the brayer. Some of the glue may squeeze out. Once again, I work on this glass worktop, and so I don't worry about things like that. Let's see, how are we doing here? This could use a little glue as well. Not as much. It's, oh, well, maybe it needs a little bit there too. So let's get this in there. We'll do this one at the same time so we can do all our squeezing at once. Pull it apart so we get our strings. There we go. I have other little bitty pieces that I don't think are going to show whenever we get to that point. So I'm going to wait until that's closer. All right, so we have our front and we have our back. Now this muslin, I'm going to tear this edge here off too so that I can have that rough edge on all of them. And I don't need all this length. I'm gonna put that in my basket before I forget. I do want it to stick up a little bit. So I think I want to tear it right about here. Right about there, yes. All right. These, I save this. And I'm going to put that back in my basket because it's really good for messy thread when you want to do something a little bit decorative. Who am I kidding? I don't really throw anything away. It's just how I am. And I bet a lot of you totally get me. Okay, so this part goes over the spine. Sorry, I was concentrating and forgot to speak. I'm trying to see through there to see where my spine is. And I'm going to glue this down. And then I'm going to glue just a little bit on here so that this edge doesn't get lost in the shuffle, because I really like the edge. In fact, I may turn that over because of that little roll there. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to glue it to the spine on this bare part and the taped part. And then I'll glue just a little bit onto here. This part, I probably wouldn't be so worried about the bubbles and stuff. Or not bubbles, the lines, the ridges, because it's going to be covered up with the signatures anyway. However, I still like to just make sure that I've got a good even, whoops, here, let me just glue that into my journal. Now I'm just going to push that in there instead of using my brayer on it. One, because I kind of like that texture there. Two, most of the glue, sometimes when you glue fabric with the Fabri-Tac, if you don't watch it and it squeezes through, it definitely shows. It just looks really weird, and I don't like blotches under my fabric. I want it to just look like fabric. So there you go. You can see right there, there's just a little bit more glue than what I would have wanted in that spot, and it's kind of starting to seep through the fabric. The rest of it, you can see that it doesn't really show. So be careful when you're gluing your fabric, especially if it's thin fabric, because you do not want the glue to show through and ruin the effect that you're going for. And that's why I use the cards so much. I just don't want my glue, I want my glue to glue, but I don't want it to ruin the look. So I'm spreading this out so there's no hills of glue. Like I said, I don't want it glued down all the way to the edges because I want some of that to just fold over. And I'm just patting it into the glue. And see, no splotches. Whoops, splotches on my desk, but no splotches there. I'll pull it back just a little bit so that I make sure that I get good coverage all the way through. Oh, I may end up with glue soaking through the fabric right there where that little glob landed when I pulled it over here because I wasn't paying attention. Let's see if we can fix that real quick. There we go. Maybe I saved it. Just gently pat right there. It's going to be holding together well because you're using a good glue, or I hope you're using a good glue. Glue can make or break your project. If you think that you shouldn't buy a certain glue just because it's a little bit expensive, just remember that it's probably a little bit expensive because it's good glue. All right, now I'm going to what? Oh, this is not glued on yet. It's just kind of sat there. Okay, I need to make my pattern so I can punch my holes for my signatures. And I know that I've got to have 5 rows because I have 5 signatures. I'm going to make this simple. I'm not going to get all fancy with my crisscross applesauce and all that other stuff that I've done on other journals. I am going to pull this off. Like I said, it's not glued on there. That just happens to still be sticky from the project it was with to begin with. I'll get my ruler and something to mark with. My marks aren't going to show, so it doesn't matter what I use to mark with. If my marks would have shown, I have this disappearing ink and Mark Be Gone. And this will dry. When it dries completely, it's gone. This one you can wipe off with water, so depending on what use you need it for, it's right there. But since this isn't showing, I'm not going to worry about doing that. My spine is 7 3/4 by 3. So 3 is 1 1/2. That was easy. Okay. So sorry, my head may get in the camera, it may not. This is a new shooting position. So if it does, I'm sorry. I really need to color my hair. I have a haircut scheduled for tomorrow. So pardon my hair. All right, so we know that this signature is going to be here. So I'm going to very lightly draw a line because I'm going to have to do math on the other one. Ooh, that was a little too light. Need to go here. There we go. Now I need to get 2 signatures on either side of this. So 1 1/2. So if I go with 1 and I go with 1/2, we should be good, correct? I always get so nervous on this part, and I don't know why. So we'll go just slightly less than 1. How about that? And just slightly more or less. I am not sure what that meant, but you know, it's me. And then we'll do the same thing over here. Just slightly more than 1/2 inch. And then just slightly more than that. There we go. I should probably measure down here as well, don't you think? There's 1 1/2. So we're going to go just slightly less than there. Slightly less than there. Slightly more than there. And slightly more than there. Oh, if you've been with me and seen any of my videos so far, you know this is how Tommy's math works. Yes, I know how to, I can do mathematics. But sometimes it takes a little more figuring, and when you're on camera, it's just a little more difficult because I think that we worry a little bit more about how we come across. All right, so our signatures will be lined up like that. We are 7 3/4. Yes, so 1/2 of 7 3/4, 1/2 of 7 is 3 1/2, 1/2 of 3/4 is 6 3/8. So 3 1/2 plus 3/8, 1 2 3. See, I told you I can do that. And since we're making this a simple, is that right? It doesn't feel right. 3 1/2, and oh, yeah, it's not quite right. Wasn't quite right. It's this one. Right there, draw an arrow. And we want this to go all the way across. And then we have some smaller papers, so we don't want to go all the way out to the edge for the other part of our sewing in. As a matter of fact, I would rather be closer in than further out. So I am going to measure, let's go down here. I'm going to measure 2 inches. I believe that will incorporate all of our pages. So we'll go with 2 inches, and then right here, 4 would be 2 inches that way. Now I'm doing all of this, and I realize that you probably, if you already know how to do signatures and sewing them in and how to do the math to figure out where your holes should be, then you can skip this part as well. I have no problem telling you to skip a part if you don't need it. But I want to make sure that the people who do need it have it available. So where I am darkening these intersections is where our holes will be punched with our awls, if you have an awl. Some people have, oh, what is the thing that punches holes that's got a lot of space? Some people have a special tool where they can just go in and hole punch. I do not. I have a lot of tools. That is not one of them. I have a thesaurus that I use for a lot of things other than a thesaurus. I have plenty. You can see all these holes back here. This is where I punch my holes. And I have to tell you, these make some really cool, when it's so holy, like this is pretty holy, it makes really cool tag fronts and for journaling cards, decorating one side, because the holes, they just add a texture and a little bit of zaniness and just some difference that I really, I like myself. I like it. All right, so this is also where I keep extra pages, like for when I'm stamping and I know I'm going to be going off the stamp. And then I just put these into my junk paper basket so that when I need something to make cards or to decorate, it's right there. Let's see, put the ruler back up here. These go in the front of the book, but right now, well, yeah, I'll go ahead and put them back in there. It's not a big deal. And I'm going to get my awl, if I can remember where I put it. Oh, I put it in here. Oh my goodness, I put it where I should have. That's how come I couldn't find it. It was put away. So these measurements I also need to remember for my journals that I went my signatures that I went 2 inches out from center. Now, these are not going to measure the same as this because it's taller. So I will measure center on each of the signatures and then go 2 inches out on that. So this is pretty sharp. I mean, it's not gonna, that could hurt if I did it too hard, so be careful. That's why I do this behind it, so I've got something to punch into. And it goes in pretty simply. This is not thick cardboard. It's probably about the weight, let's see. It is a backing for, let's see, a stamp pad or something. It's from Me and My Big Ideas, from Mambi. So it's a backing of packaging. So it's not tremendously thick. But again, it's going to be layered with the other parts of the cover and the spine. So it will be plenty strong enough. And part of the reason that I layer like that is so that I can easily figure out where my holes need to be punched. Now, after going through the first time doing it, I go through the other side as well, because sometimes the holes just want to be a little silly and they're hard to find if you only punch one direction. So I go both ways on the awl. This also makes the holes just slightly bigger so that your needle and your waxed thread or twine or yarn or ribbon or whatever it is that you are using to bind your journal, so that it has room to travel through. So I will set that there so I don't lose it again. Set this back where it belongs, right there. I keep it really handy just right there so I can grab it. All right, so now I have my marks here. And I know that this is bigger than what I need. So I will put that in the center. Oh, I need to put a little bit of glue to hold it. And then I will trim off the edges. This doesn't need a lot of glue, and I won't be spreading it out with my card. Because that is absolutely not going to be seen, and it won't affect that at all. So I'm going to tear a couple of loose pieces off of here. I kind of like that back there behind the signature. I don't know, it just gives it a neat look that I like. There we go. I'm going to take my scissors. These are my Stanley scissors, and I use them a lot when I am cutting things like this. Here I'm going to cut off the corner because I am going to wrap those edges. Though I don't have any of the exposed cardboard showing if I can help it. It might happen anyway, but we'll do what we can to alleviate what shows. And these will go back into my basket, even that little tiny piece, because you never know. Never know. So now we're going to first, I'm going to fold it so that it gives it a little bit of memory of where it's going to be folded over. There we go. There's that. There's that. This one's a little thicker because it has more layers. I find that folding it down like this first before I put the glue on and then fold it down just helps to get that rounded over the edges. Get my bone folder out. Is it my bone folder? Yes. Oh, it's over here. Give that a crease. Do the same thing on all four sides after I've got it folded down. This paper or this string really wants to be in this particular part of the project. All right. Then I'll lift that back up. Yes, there's some sticking going on already because of the glue that was already on the project. Now this is where you will want to have some clips, possibly, because depending on how stubborn your paper is, you may need some help to hold it down. I also have, these are my favorite things to use, are these tiny little clothespins. And this is the side that has a lot of layers. I'm using a lot of clips on this part. Sorry, I keep going off screen because I'm having to reach to the other side of where I'm used to reaching. All right, so there is that one. And we will go through and do the other sides. I put the glue down at the bottom where they join because I know it's going to squeeze out as I push it down. And that way I have less glue that comes seeping. I'm going to use this one here and this one here because this is a shorter side. And I think that that'll work better. This is a little bit tight down here. It may not cover the cardboard completely. So I may have to do something else in order to make sure that that corner is covered if it shows. If it doesn't show after I've got the book put together, then we don't have to worry about it. If we can't see it, then it doesn't bother, right? Well, not necessarily. If I know it's wrong, I may have to fix it just because I know it didn't work. Nobody else might see it, but I would know. And that little bitty piece there. We'll see what happens with that. That may have to be finagled. I look like I have a very fancy centipede on my studio table. All right, last gluing spot. It's a little awkward because of all the clothespins that are already on there. And that and that. Now we've got a gap going on, so I'm going to put another one right there. All right, we'll let that dry for a moment. And when it is dry, I will turn it over. I will lay it on here, and I will poke my holes through the holes that are already on there, through to the back of the spine, because we will need to pull the threads through the waxed thread that I'm using in order to attach the signatures to the spine. So I am going to give you all a break right now as I let this dry. And I will see you all in the next video when we start sewing in the signatures to the spine. Thank you for joining me. And as always, be kind.